That's just what Australia is. The dream of a homeland for the white man. G'day folks, this is Raymond Foster, Independent Senate candidate for Queensland. Vote for me if you want your freedoms and rights protected. Leader and founder of the Australian Vanguard, which is a white positive organisation, charity or charitable non-profit organisation which promotes the well-being of all folk, all races, including white people in Western kind. If you haven't heard, you've been living under a rock, there's this thing called CRT, or critical race theory. Now this is anti-white theory, essentially. It's a promotion of the anti-white narrative and anti-white meme pathogens, and it's packaged and labelled as critical race theory. But it's just anti-whiteism. That's it. Anyway, folk have been pushing to have this banned in the US. It's actually coming to their curriculum in the US, into the schools of children, okay? Indoctrinating innocent children with psychological child abuse, okay? They've made it part of the school to teach children, right? Well, not to teach them, to abuse them with child abuse. Instead of teaching them maths or teaching them how to read and write, what we used to learn when we were in school, now they have these curriculums called things like critical race theory, where they're actually, instead of teaching the children about things that they can use in their life, studying things that will help them, again, mathematics, learning to read and write and whatnot. No, instead, in these school curriculums, do you know what they teach the children? They don't teach nothing. They abuse the children. It's that literally they teach the teachers to, instead of teaching the children in a class, gather the children in a class and molest and abuse the children and psychologically traumatize them and make them hate themselves. That's critical race theory. And which children are being targeted? The white children. So what does it make it? Anti-white. Pretty straightforward. Anyway, it's being pushed in American curriculums in their schools. And at the moment they're fighting to have it stopped and to be banned, made illegal. Because it is bigotry. It's racial discrimination. It's hatred. And it's child abuse. So every good person wants it outlawed, obviously. And we can celebrate as Aussies and in Australia, okay? As I always like to say, Australia was built as a proud white nation. The very first law in this country was the White Australia Policy, which was an immigration policy that said only white people are allowed to move into Australia and live here because this is a white man's land for white man. And that's been our culture. That's what the Anzacs went and fought and died for, okay? That's what all of our soldiers have rallied around. That's who we are as a people. So it's still deep within us. To be a true blue Aussie is to be a white Aussie and to respect a white Australia, okay? That's what our ancestors fought and died for. All of the first prime ministers of Australia were proud and they fought for and to protect a white Australia. That's actually why we have a constitution and a federal government. Our founding fathers created the Australian government to create the immigration laws to make Australia white and maintain Australia as a white homogenous nation. So it's fundamental to who we are and what this nation is. The very construction, the very creation of Australia, the actual government was created just to create the border so we could say, okay, only white people can come past this national border. Because before that was just separate colonies. But we united as Australia and become the Commonwealth, right? So like Queensland, New South Wales, Northern Territory, South Australia, Western Australia. Now we have Canberra as well as a separate state, and then Tasmania. All came together, and originally New Zealand was a part of Australia as well before it became its own country. So originally it was one of the states of Australia as well, but then it became New Zealand. But so originally it was just all these separate colonies, and they came together and created Australia. Why? So that we could have a national border, so that we could create the immigration policy, the White Australia policy, and keep the country white. So the entire reason we have Australia, the reason it was even invented, the reason Australia exists, every man and woman who has ever strived to build Australia, all the values of Australia, what the men and women died for as Anzacs to protect Australia, everything about it is to create a white homeland for white man. Okay? Has been from the very beginning, always has, will be. That's just what Australia is. The dream of a homeland for the white man. It is white well-being, white positivity. That was the initial intent. Exactly everything I'm about is exactly what every Australian has always been about. This is what it means to be an Aussie, to be Australian, to fight for Australia, to be a digger, a true blue, an Anzac. Yeah? So it's in us, and it's strong. And guess what? Last night, the Senate in Australia, Australian government, again, which was created for the sole purpose of keeping this nation white. Okay? And the men who created the Commonwealth and founded our nation and created the Australian government, they said this themselves. They wrote it out very clearly. They made the point. The whole reason we created this country is to keep this place white. That's the only reason. Nothing else. That's the only point of the whole thing. We'll use excuses and pretend it's an economic thing and blah, blah, because people like to hear that and they'll give us more votes. But the sole purpose and the only reason for Australia is white homeland for white people. Okay? The men who created this country. That's what they said themselves. So nobody can doubt it. You can't say I'm wrong. You can look at what their founding fathers said, and that's exactly what they said. Okay? And it still lives in us. Last night, the Senate, our government, banned critical race theory. It's gone. It's not allowed in Australia. Critical race theory, the anti-white indoctrination of children, okay, that specific curriculum has been banned in Australia. We're not going to have critical race theory, I'm afraid. And this is just the beginning. Okay? We're going to be removing all types of anti-white indoctrination. Okay? This is just one form of it. There's lots more that has to be removed. There's like, for example, the lie, the proven lie of the stolen generation. Okay? Anti-white, nonsense, lie. It's just an literally made up lie used to excuse and justify the theft of wealth from white people. We give like over $30 billion from white people, out of the pockets of white people, okay, instead of them being able to spend it on their own children. $30 billion every year out of the pockets of white people goes to Aboriginals. And sure, we should help them and whatnot, but that doesn't mean that they get to have an excuse, a lie, like the stolen generation, just to lie, to attack us as white people, and then steal our wealth, and then justify robbing us. Literally, we're being robbed for $30 billion every year, which has been justified by a lie that never happened. It's been proven in multiple court cases, where the evidence has actually been presented, even by the Aboriginal folk, okay? It all went to court because Aboriginals, they wanted to get reparations because they apparently were stolen as children, and they were a part of the stolen generation. But when they actually presented all the evidence and they took it all through court, it turned out, actually, no, it's fake. They weren't stolen. Their parents were abusing them, and they were taken by docs. And there was actually more white children taken by docs than Aboriginal children. So if anything, the stolen generation, it was mostly white kids. So if you can call it a stolen generation if you want, but it was just docs taking abused children from all races of people. And it was mostly white children, not Aboriginal children, who got taken in that stolen generation. So you can call it that if you want, but that's all it was. It was just docs taking abused kids. And it was more white kids than Aboriginals who were taken. So if that's the facts of the matter, that means that doesn't justify Aboriginals getting to rob white people for $30 million every year. Because there was actually more white children taken in the stolen generation than there was Aboriginal children. So if anyone needs to get paid for the stolen generation, it's us whites. Because more of our children were taken in the stolen generation than Aboriginals. And that's just the facts of the matter. Again, this has been proven in multiple court cases when the actual evidence was presented. This is the beginning of the end of anti-whiteism in Australia. Okay? Critical race theory in the bin. It's gone for good. And we're coming for the rest. So things like stolen generation, the rest of it, it's all going in the bin. No white guilt. We will not say sorry. We haven't done anything wrong. We expect a thank you. Okay? Everybody on the planet who has ever encountered the white man, they are better off now than before they encountered the white man. And everyone agrees, everyone knows, especially all my Aboriginal mates know this. They love playing their Xbox. They love the internet. They love using their heaters. Chilling, bro, like drinking beers or alcohol, whatever. This is all white man comforts. They love wearing clothing. They love their shoes, riding their bikes, driving cars. You know, this is all white man stuff. You're all better off because of the white man, and you know it. So just a thank you every now and again would be appreciated. Okay? You're not saying that Western kind is superior. You're not saying white man culture is... No, it's just, you obviously prefer it yourself. It's more, you're more engaged in it. You prefer it. Otherwise, you would just be naked out in the bush. And if that's your thing, more power to you. Okay? I don't expect you to be thanking the white man and white and Western kind in general and, white culture for your lifestyle and your benefits and whatnot. Because if you actually live out in the bush, and you're a true Aboriginal tribal, and you're hunting your meals with a spear, more power to you. I have huge respect for you and your culture. You don't have to say thank you to me or my people because you live your way. But if you live in a city and you live inside a house and you have electricity, then you should probably thank the white man and not be a fuckwit about it. Yeah? Just be a decent human being and thank the white man for your fucking lifestyle. Because if it wasn't for my people, you wouldn't have the comforts that you have and the lifestyle that you have. Again, every people on the planet who have ever encountered the white man, they're better off now than before. So no, we're not saying sorry. We have no white guilt. You're supposed to say thank you to us, okay? And it's going to get to that point. Right? We're going to ban everything that says otherwise as anti-white, bigotry, and discrimination on the basis of our race. Until everyone is saying, thank you, white man, for the electricity and the cars and the hospitals and the fact that our children don't have to die in the wilderness. We can actually have doctors, care for our children. It's really nice. Thank you, white man. Alright? If you're a decent, good person, that's your attitude. You're appreciative. You have gratitude. You say thank you to people when they help you. Yeah? You don't be a spiteful piece of shit and not have gratitude and not say thank you. Basic stuff. Have some manners. Thank Western kind. Alright? Because we've obviously done the greatest and most for everybody. We just love to help. But if you can't say thank you, then we can't keep helping, can we? No. We're just going to keep marching on, until there's no more anti-white hatred in this nation. We're going to put an end to the racial discrimination and the bigotry, once and for all. Take it easy.